I feel like the conversation after Carolyn Leavitt was fired was mostly focused on what a shock it was, and it really was. It's a surprise that Caroline Leavitt out of the blue announced that she was leaving the White House ahead of the midterms. And I think most of us started to ask the question, why was it because of Natalie Harp? Was it because of her kids? Was it because of the decoy plane? And those are important questions to ask, but I don't really want to ask questions in this video. I just want to make a statement. Carolyn Leavitt is a fucking terrible person, and she was horrible at her job. She was the worst press secretary in American history. And that includes the, 10 days? The Scaramucci. And he's a much better guy than she is. So let's talk about that in this video, how bad Caroline Leavitt was at her job, and why I am so glad to see two of my favorite people in the press making sure we all remember Jen Psaki and Jessica Tarlov, who went off on Carolyn Lewis. I want to look at both of these responses to her firing from actual incredible women in media. Let's begin with Jen Psaki. But before I do, if I could quickly ask you to subscribe to this channel, because we will always stand up to the White House's attacks on the press.
And that has meant lying to the public for Trump's benefit whenever and wherever she could, even about absolutely absurd things. Like when she emphatically repeated Trump's lies about vandalism at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool.
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. These deranged individuals, many of them longtime donors to the Democrat Party, to Barack Obama, to Act Blue, that have been vandalizing and desecrating our federal monument.
Not true. Any of it. And we know it's not true because the Trump administration admitted in court that it was their own shoddy contractor who caused damage to the reflecting pool. What a silly thing to lie about. You never want to lie, but what an absurd thing. Or how about the time she said this about the cost of Trump's ridiculous ballroom project?
Back to the ballroom, I'm afraid. I just wanted to ask, because in July, the White House said that it would cost $200 million. Yesterday, the president said $300 million. Is $300 million now the operative figure, and why did it go up by so much?
$300 million is the figure, and again, it's not going to cost the taxpayers a dime.
Also not true. I mean, thanks to reporting, we know Trump's ballroom will cost much more than $300 million, and a significant portion of that is coming from taxpayers. In fact, contractor estimates obtained by the Washington Post found that the project will cost at least $600 million, with more than half of that coming from taxpayers. And who could forget the time she tried to explain away the weird discoloration and bandages on Trump's hands by saying they were the result of vigorous handshaking. Remember this?
As for the bandages on the hand, we've also given you an explanation for that in the past. The president is literally constantly shaking hands. The Oval Office is like Grand Central Terminal.
I mean, and when she couldn't lie to reporters, she often resorted to just picking aggressive fights, like this moment in the wake of the tragic ICE shooting of Renee Good.
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist. And it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat.
Now, don't get me wrong. The relationship between the press and the White House is supposed to be adversarial by design. I mean, the press and the room are supposed to push for more access, for more information. And there are times when it's absolutely appropriate for the press secretary to push back. But Caroline Leavitt didn't want to engage in good faith with those reporters and their tough questions. And so instead, she did everything she could to reshape that briefing room into her own personal safe space where she rarely had to answer a tough question, hardly ever. I mean, she only briefed once or twice a week max. Most press secretaries brief 5 days a week, including when they're traveling. Sometimes she simply yelled at the real reporters in the room. And over the course of time, she filled the room with MAGA sycophants. Every day she began her briefings with a question from what she called the new media seat, where basically MAGA podcasters could enter the briefing room. And during periods of time where there were a lot of other things they could be asking about, they posed questions like this one.
Caroline, will you guys also consider releasing the president's fitness plan? He actually looks healthier than ever before. Healthier than he did 8 years ago, and I'm sure everybody in this room could agree. Is he working out with Bobby Kennedy? And is he eating less McDonald's?
I can confirm the president is in very good shape.
I mean, first of all, come on now. Come on now. But more importantly, that's real hard-hitting journalism there, isn't it? From those new media seats. And there were more and more and more of those people in the briefing room taking up more and more time and space in the briefing room and in the Oval Office. This is not what the briefing room is supposed to look like. This is not who is supposed to get oxygen in the White House press corps. The hardest part of your job as White House press secretary shouldn't be keeping a straight face while someone asks why Donald Trump is looking so svelte. That's what happened there. And the thing is, reshaping the briefing room has real consequences beyond just irritating the actual reporters in the room.
I am so glad that Jen Psaki, who in the beginning of the Trump administration would do this segment on MSNBC that I always loved, in which he would pick apart what Caroline Lewis said, not just in her press secretary role saying, you know, I wouldn't have responded this way. I would have maybe framed it like that and like kind of giving her advice. In, of course, a joking way. She wasn't actually giving her advice, but also, of course, critiquing Leavitt as a journalist herself. Now, Jen Psaki is. But I think it's important to remember what a bad person Carolyn Leavitt is. Just truly terrible, because she will be on this tour, she'll probably write a book, she'll probably do a podcast or get a Fox deal, and when she talks about how hard it was or difficult or working with the press. There was no working with the press. There were constant attacks on the press, undermining the press. Carolyn Lewis, right before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, said shots were going to be fired. Shots were going to be fired. How many times did this woman, physically threaten the lives of reporters who are just trying to do their job, their patriotic duty in covering this White House? It is why I am always so enraged at the fact that we see reporters never push back on the issues Donald Trump is most worried about them asking questions on. It's his health, it's the files, it's Donald Trump's war on Iran that was started on behalf of Israel. Nobody likes to ask those questions as much as they should. They don't like to talk about Barron's relationship to Andrew Tate or the brothers in their dealings with the Pentagon. Now, these are questions rarely directly asked of Donald Trump, and it is because this White House has created a culture of fear. Kash Patel has sent the FBI to raid the homes of journalists at The Washington Post. Brian Tyler Coleman is on an enemies list right now. Caroline Leavitt is a bad person and a thug. She did not only use that room to attack and to yell and to scream and to make a scene, but she left it. So I'm glad that we are being reminded that Caroline Leavitt was just a bad person, and that she deserves everything that is coming to her. Because Carolyn Levine was a part of all of this. She wasn't just the mouthpiece. She was an integral cog. That is the reporting that we are hearing right now. And Donald Trump is very, very scared with Carolyn Lewis gone. It's why she's supposedly staying on as an outside advisor. Now, to me, Carolyn is staying on as an outside advisor so she can continue to grift off this administration and maybe get some contracts with some lobbying firms, maybe a foreign government. Netanyahu needs some help on his re-election. Now, wouldn't be surprised if I saw Caroline Lewis take a trip to Tel Aviv. That was basically her job while she was already press secretary. But Carolyn Lewis was intimately involved with everything going on. She was in those meetings in the Situation Room about the files. So there is no reason these people shouldn't be prosecuted. Carolyn Lewis also committed campaign finance crimes. She has huge campaign finance violations that she's racked up. She didn't pay her staff. She was taking illegal contributions. These are bad people. And then Donald Trump took apart the very governing body that would have checked her on those violations just to help out Carolyn. But now he's pivoted. Now he's moved on to a new friend, to a new person to change his diapers, to a new blonde who he can be infatuated with, Natalie Harp. And so Carolyn Leavitt, who has loved Donald Trump since 2015, And there's a video of her at her very small private college in 2016, with a very different looking face. 'Cause obviously, it's been Mar-a-Lago defied. It's been 28-year-old cougar defied. And she's asking questions of Mr. Trump. Oh, Mr. Trump. Oh, dear Leader Trump, so... Yeah, Carolyn Lewis. You're just as much a part of this as anyone else, and you don't get to get off the hook 'cause you left early, and you said it was about your kids. We know what it's about. It's about avoiding accountability, and it's about making a little bit of cash, little bit of change on your way out, 'cause they all know that this administration is falling apart. But, yeah, Carolyn Leavitt was terrible at her job. And, want to know the best encapsulation of what her job really was is that the Fox propaganda outlet, as we call it on this show, ran a retirement video for her on their network. They ran a montage of the best moments of Carolyn Leavitt. I know Jen Psaki works for MSNBC now, and lots of press secretaries, because they work in communications, go on to work in television. And I find that perfectly reasonable. And that is why I am glad Jessica Tarlov stepped in to illustrate the real truth of what she had done in the White House, the viewers at Fox.
So having two little kids, I can't even imagine. Mine are even older than that in my job, way less demanding. It is very hard to do. The stints for White House press secretaries have been getting shorter and shorter. Yeah. So she's at 19 months. Karine Jean-Pierre did 2.5, but then Jen Psaki was less than that. So I don't think there's anything suspicious going. I was surprised that he didn't want to have her stay. And maybe she just said no, but through the midterms, because I think that she has certainly proven herself to him as someone who does his bidding very well. She dodges, she attacks, she obfuscates. I think that the glowing reports about how well that she did, when a lot of it was just demeaning the press and taking a reasonable question. Yeah, I know you're excited, Charlie. But then making it out like people are insane is not what you wanted in a press secretary. And I did want to review some of the mistruths, lies, whatever it was, from the podium. U.S. spending $50 million on condoms for Gaza. The Epstein files are a Democratic hoax. There are no war plans sent in the Signal chat with Jeffrey Goldberg. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a gang member, then producing no evidence of it. America is becoming more affordable under Trump, and that the federal aid freeze won't affect any individuals.
This right here, this is what Carolyn Leavitt deserves. This is how she deserves to be remembered, how she deserves to be talked about. She deserves to be prosecuted. All these people in this administration do, and she deserves the drubbing in the press, the constant humiliation, the mockery. That's what Carolyn Leavitt deserves. And I'm glad that she got some this week. I'm glad that we didn't just talk about Natalie Harp, although I do love talking about Natalie Harp. But we also need to reflect on what a bad person Caroline Lewis is, right? Just because someone leaves this administration does not mean they are washing their hands of it. Very much the opposite. They are staying involved in participating in corruption in a different. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.